You are sitting somewhere ordinary, a desk, a couch, fair bed at 11 at night, and your mind is elsewhere. It is inside a conversation that hasn't happened yet. It is in a meeting 2 days away, rehearsing what you might say, what the other person might say, what could go wrong. It is running scenarios about the thing you're waiting to hear about, exploring the version of events where the news is bad, moving through the logical chain of consequences that would follow. Your body is registering some of this as real. Your chest is slightly tight. Your jaw, if you check it, is probably clenched. And the remarkable thing is that nothing has happened, nothing is happening. The event your mind is inhabiting does not yet exist, and may never exist in the form you're imagining. But your nervous system cannot fully distinguish between a scenario being simulated and a scenario being experienced. It responds to both. This is not a malfunction. It is one of the most sophisticated features of human cognition, and one of its most painful byproducts. The ability to mentally simulate future events, to run them forward in time, to anticipate threats and prepare for them before they arrive, is one of the cognitive capabilities that made human survival and cooperation possible at the scale it has reached. Other animals respond to threats they can perceive directly. Humans can respond to threats that are weeks or months away, or that have never happened, or that may never happen. That capacity is genuinely remarkable. It is also the mechanism by which you can spend a significant portion of your waking life inside scenarios of loss, failure, rejection, or catastrophe that have no present tense reality at all. Understanding the architecture of this, what it actually is, how it actually works, and why evolution built it this way, changes the emotional relationship you have with it. It stops being a personal failing, a sign of anxiety, or evidence that something is wrong with you. It becomes something more precise and more workable, a specific cognitive system doing a specific job, with predictable costs and specific conditions under which those costs increase or can be reduced. The modern neuroscience picture of the brain frames it not as a reactive organ, one that experiences the world and then responds, but as a predictive one. The brain's primary function on this account is to generate models of the world and use those models to anticipate what is likely to happen next. Before it happens, perception itself is largely a predictive process. The brain fills in what it expects to see, hear, and feel based on its models, and only updates those models when the incoming sensory data differs meaningfully from the prediction. This predictive architecture is why optical illusions work. The brain's model holds even when you know, intellectually, that it's wrong, and it is why anticipatory anxiety is so compelling, because the predictive process that generates it is running on the same substrate as the process that perceives reality. Daniel Kahneman's framework for understanding human cognition divides mental processing into two broad systems. System 1 is fast, automatic, emotional, and associative, the rapid, low-effort processing that runs continuously beneath conscious awareness. System 2 is slow, deliberate, effortful, and analytical, the conscious reasoning that most people experience as their actual thinking. What Kahneman's research showed is that System 1 is doing far more of the cognitive work than people generally believe, and crucially, System 1 has a strong negativity bias. It flags potential threats more readily than potential opportunities. It weights losses more heavily than equivalent gains, and it generates emotional responses to imagined futures with a speed and intensity that the deliberate reasoning of System 2 often cannot override. The anticipatory disaster rehearsal is primarily a System 1 product. It runs fast, below the threshold of deliberate choice, driven by associative pattern matching between current circumstances and previous experiences of difficulty or threat. Your mind isn't consciously deciding to rehearse the worst-case scenario. It is doing what its fast processing system does automatically when it detects cues associated with uncertainty, threat, or unresolved outcomes. The rational analysis that tells you the probability of the bad outcome is actually quite low as a System 2 product. It arrives later, runs slower, and often fails to fully override the emotional urgency generated by System 1's threat assessment. Robert Sapolsky's work on the biology of stress fills in the physiological dimension that makes this so consequential for daily experience. Sapolsky spent decades studying stress in humans, in other primates, in the chronic form produced by social hierarchies and psychological uncertainty, rather than the acute form produced by physical danger. His research demonstrated that the same hormonal cascade that produces the stress response in the presence of a genuine physical threat, the surge of cortisol and adrenaline, the redirection of metabolic resources toward the muscles and away from digestion and immune function. The narrowing of attention is activated by the anticipation of a threatening event. The lion the zebra is running from is a present tense physical reality. The conversation you're dreading for Thursday afternoon is a mental simulation. The stress biology is substantially the same. Sapolsky also documented what chronic anticipatory stress does to the body and brain over time. Sustained cortisol elevation, the kind produced by prolonged uncertainty, chronic worry or persistent anticipatory anxiety, disrupts sleep architecture, impairs hippocampal function and memory consolidation, compromises immune response, and alters the structural connectivity of brain regions involved in emotional regulation. These are not theoretical, long-term risks. They are measurable changes that accumulate across months and years of sustained psychological stress, much of it generated by simulated futures rather than present tense events. The mind's disaster rehearsal is not cost-free. It is consuming the same biological resources as actual lived experience. Joseph Ledoux's research on the amygdala and fear circuits adds the anatomical precision to this picture. Ledoux identified the neural pathways through which threat signals bypass the cortex, the thinking brain, and activate the amygdala directly, generating an emotional and physiological response faster than conscious reasoning can intercept. This low road of fear processing, direct, fast pre-rational, is what produces the racing heart, the clenched jaw, the shallow breath in the moment of perceived threat. But Ledoux's research also showed that the amygdala does not require a present tense threat to activate. It responds to representations of threat, images, words, memories, imagined scenarios, with a speed and urgency that is physiologically nearly identical to its response to present tense danger. The mental simulation of the difficult conversation is a representation of threat. The amygdala fires accordingly. The stress response follows, and you are sitting at your desk, heart slightly elevated, for a conversation that hasn't happened yet. What the research from all three frameworks converges on is this: anticipatory anxiety is not primarily produced by rational assessment of probabilities. It is produced by a biological threat detection system that evolved to err on the side of over-detection, that flags potential dangers early and urgently, because the cost of missing a genuine threat was, in evolutionary history, catastrophic. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is that it was designed for an environment where most threats were physical, immediate, and resolved within minutes or hours. The modern threats that most people face, social, professional, relational, existential, are typically abstract, delayed, and open-ended. The system applies its full urgency to all of them, and the anticipatory processing goes on, not for minutes but for days or weeks. There are three specific interventions that this framework supports. The first is system recognition, developing the practice of noticing when anticipatory processing is running and labeling it precisely. Not "I'm anxious about Thursday," but "my threat detection system is running a simulation of Thursday," and treating it as a present tense event. This is not a trivial distinction. The labeling, naming what is happening at the system level rather than identifying with the content of the simulation, activates System 2 processing and partially reduces the automaticity with which System 1's threat assessment governs the emotional state. Kahneman's research suggests that naming a process can reduce its influence, particularly when the naming is accurate and specific. The second is what Sapolsky's work on the stress response implies: interrupting the physiological loop. Because the stress response is bidirectional. The mind produces the body's stress state, but the body's physiological state also feeds back into the mind's threat assessment. Intervening at the physiological level can reduce the urgency of the mental simulation. Slow, deliberate breathing, particularly extended exhalation, activates the parasympathetic nervous system and reduces cortisol in real time. This is not meditation advice. It is a direct intervention in the biological substrate that the anticipatory processing is running on. reduce the cortisol, and the urgency of the threat simulation decreases. The third is what Ledoux's research on the cortical pathway implies, providing System 2 with the actual probability information and holding it there long enough to partially update the System 1 response, not as a one-time rational exercise, but as a practice skill. What is the specific outcome I'm anticipating? What is the actual face rate probability of that outcome? What would need to be true for it to occur? What have I done to address the elements that are within my control? This structured inquiry does not eliminate anticipatory anxiety. The amygdala does not respond to probability statistics, but it creates a sustained counter-narrative that, practiced over time, reduces the proportion of each day spent inside worst-case simulations. The System 1 process continues, but System 2 is in conversation with it rather than silent. You are not someone with an unusually anxious mind. You are someone with a very functional, predictive brain, operating in an environment saturated with open-ended uncertainties that it was not fully designed to process, and experiencing the costs of that mismatch. The mechanisms you're running are sophisticated. They were useful in a very specific kind of environment. The work is not to shut them down, which isn't possible, but to understand them precisely enough to work alongside them rather than being run by them. The next layer worth exploring is what research on uncertainty tolerance shows. Specifically, why some people find ambiguity more activating than others, and what the structural conditions are under which the predictive brain learns to hold unresolved questions, without converting them automatically into anticipated threats. That's the next conversation. For now, what is the scenario you most commonly find yourself rehearsing in advance? Not asking you to share the content, but is it social, professional, relational, existential? Leave a word in the comments if something comes to mind, and if this channel is where you build your understanding of your own cognitive architecture. The subscribe button is for that project. Pass it along if someone you know is suffering, in advance of things that haven't happened yet.